It is indeed a pleasure to have this privilege to play here for you. We intend to give you a very fine program, so just settle back, relax, and enjoy the moment.
Let's see if we can get in focus. Hold up. Good morning. I'm gonna work this out. New webcam woes. This is interesting. I've never seen this webcam do this. Like not focus. There we go. Good morning. I know the plan for this week, y'all, was to take a break. I'm off from work, so the plan was to take a break from Twitch. But honestly, on top of wanting to sit down with one of my closest friends here in Charleston and talk about something really important that I have been so anxiously awaiting, like the moment to talk about it, human trafficking, and like really trying to untangle this little web of misinformation and disinformation. So I'm going to be talking to Evelyn Devere around 8:30, my friend Evelyn Devere, about human trafficking and a number of things. But what also brought me back on a Thursday is all of the news that just popped off. Like, you would think the start of summer, the unofficial start of summer, you would think that would come with like maybe a little lull. No. Harry Griffin was like, literally, hold my beer. And Harry Griffin was also like, Nancy Mace was also like, oh, no. Let me chime in. Good morning, new follower. Is it Roy Hybrid? Good morning, Roy. I saw that you followed about 8 hours ago on Twitch. Welcome to Mic'd Up with Mika Gazin. Mic'd Up in the morning. Good morning, Justin. All right, let's just get it cracking like we always do. We're gonna start with local news, local information, and then we're gonna hop right into the breakingest of most breakingest news. Historic bid for governor. Yeah, if you saw what I teased out on Twitter or anywhere else except YouTube is still playing me with the announcements. But if you've seen the announcements for this morning's live stream, you know that we got some big gubernatorial news. I can't wait till I get sound effects so I can like drop bombs, drop bombs like Funk Master Flex. All right, so here we go. Here is the weather today. Shout out Charleston weather. Shout out for Jared Smith, who has been dispensing very critically important information because we are now in hurricane season. Hurricane season started on the 1st. We've been seeing, it's almost like as on cue, the weather, the mugginess returned, the stormy weather in the evenings, the increased chance of thunderstorms, all of that came on cue. So today, high 84 degrees, a little cooler than yesterday. Low of 71. We already blew that out the frame. Let's head over to the Post and Courier. This is the digital edition. I'm gonna hit refresh real quick. Shout out if you're watching on Facebook. I think I got one view on Facebook. It's all good. It's like I've been off my routine. All right, so we had this looks like a really oh man, devastating crash. Dashboard camera video shows moment. Alleged DUI driver hit Berkeley County deputy. I honestly have not been in the news outside of those things I just mentioned a moment ago. But I guess Memorial Day weekend. Yeah, this is why I kind of kept it low key on Memorial Day as a former Uber driver who I'm low key, high key paranoid about driving in Charleston on like these really like St. Patty's Day, the New Year, Christmas. I'm really paranoid about driving in Charleston, and I always kind of like, I'm gonna stay low key, even though most accidents happen about 5 minutes from your house, I think, statistically. But I try to just really stay off the road if possible, or if I do hit the road at like at times where there's gonna be less traffic. But yeah, so this is the digital edition. Let's hop over to the front page, really kind of like snooze fest, because we're gonna hop into them videos real quick, the video news real quick, breaking news. All right, so record enrollment for summer school as reported on the front page. Let me change the display. All right, yeah, summer school enrollment is high. I believe it. This Kiowa Spit thing, I'm not, Sam Spit, I'm not really on that story, to be honest with you. Of course, more environmental news on the front page. Let's go below the fold. Let's see if they got any lawmakers aim to buy pristine land on Harbor for $23 million. Oh wow. Buying it for some nuns. Buying it from some nuns. Okay. All right, let's close this out. And let's just get to the news. Let me make sure my history is fresh. We got some really important news. Let's just go ahead and hit that.
Richland Senator Mia McLeod announcing tonight she is running for governor. The Democrat telling the Associated Press she can win because she knows how to connect with voters from all political backgrounds and walks of life. McLeod cites education and health care as her chief campaign concerns. She says Republican Governor Henry McMaster failed to lead the state during the recent coronavirus pandemic. Two other Democrats have announced their campaign so far, former 1st District Congressman Joe Cunningham and local activist Gary Volter. If she wins, she would be the first black woman to serve as a governor in the United States.
And then every time I hear that stat, I'm just always blown away because I'm like, really? Like never, ever, ever? Right? I wanted to get this. So the Post and Courier covered this story. And also, so basically how it hit my radar. Basically, I got a little message last night. Hosting my stream with one viewer. Thank you, Roy. All right, Roy, you said you chiming in about never takes a break to anyone, especially the pandemic. Nope. Shout out, Roy. Thank you for your support. I appreciate your support on my channel. But last night I got a little call from someone in the Mia McLeod camp. Shout out to them. Shout out to the amazing black women in Mia McLeod's camp. Already starting off on the right foot by having the right people. The people who have reached out to me are people that I have grown to know and trust their leadership here in South Carolina. And so it's really reassuring, as opposed to, and I'm just going to keep it a buck, Joe Cunningham, and his operative Tyler choosing to be an antagonistic force on Twitter whenever anyone says anything critical about his candidate. We all know we're going to talk more about this. I think I got the feedback from y'all that you all don't know as much of the back end as I thought people do. Now the OGs do, but perhaps people where I'm kind of making this bridge between, like, let's say, I don't know what generation I am. I think I'm a geriatric millennial. So I'm gonna call myself a geriatric millennial. But that bridge between like millennial, geriatric millennial, and I know that's ages, and Gen Z, I think there's a gap in information, and so hopefully I can help bridge that gap with some of the information. But like, the dude running Joe Cunningham's campaign is straight trash. It's like super dumpster fire, right? And so and of course my personal feelings are my personal feelings, but what informs that personal opinion is his track record. Are the rumors, are the anecdotes, are the shared stories from women about how he's mistreated folks. And then like me, I just literally just made a joke about Joe Cunningham, and he chose to pinpoint that tweet because he's searching Joe Cunningham's mentions on Twitter, and instead of being a professional, weighed in with me about things like that, instead of just building out a stronger campaign. Be better. And so when people launch campaigns, I'm saying all that to say, when candidates launch campaigns, I look at who's behind the scenes. I listen to see what voices am I hearing in the messaging. And with Mia McLeod's candidacy, off the top, I already saw good things, and not just because the people behind them are people I know. It's just because, like, you start off being a professional. You start off courting voices that you think will help advance your message, not just coming out and just doing the same old shtick at a brewery over and over and over again, right? Like a cardboard cutout, right? So yeah, Meg in elder millennial, please. Okay, I'll be an elder millennial. I heard geriatric millennial and it just stuck. Elder millennial. Roy Hybrid, you said you never liked Joe, period. He never was a leader in my eyes. I mean, yeah, it's a lot of, we got opinions. We got opinions about Joe. And I try to keep it above board. I want to say shout out to my followers who want to keep me informed. about Joe Cunningham, but I'm also going to ask you politely, don't send me any of his personal mess. I don't care about that. I know me and Kia can get messy about certain things, but when the personal becomes news, then we could talk, right? But I don't care about like his personal life, like that's behind the scenes that has nothing to do with his race. But like let's say like when Mark Sanford went MIA on the Appalachian Trail with his then mistress, now wife, that's newsworthy. That, you were on government time, you lied, it was a big thing. That was newsworthy. But I don't want to get into anyone's personal life, just to, kind of kiki. And I know we can kiki. We definitely gonna kiki about Miss Mace. All right, so this is the headline from the Post and Courier. Shout out to Jamie Lovegrove. He just followed me on Twitter, so I feel special. All right, State Senator Mia McLeod launches her 2022 Democratic bid for South Carolina governor. I want to contrast this headline with what Meg Kennard, and this was published last night. Meg Kennard, it says today, but I think I saw it last night. Pardon me. So this is the Associated Press headline. South Carolina lawmaker makes history as first black woman to run for governor. I just want to compare and contrast, right? And why it's important is because, again, Post and Courier typically, yes, even though there are outstanding reporters and outstanding journalists at the Post and Courier, they tend to frame news and to diminish history, especially when it comes to people of color, right? That's just because to me, you're bearing the lead, LEDE, when you don't lift up the fact that, she makes history as the first black woman to run for governor. We know this country has never had a black woman governor, but she's the first black South Carolina black woman to run for governor. So that's huge. Don't bury the lead. You know what I'm saying? So let's get back to Jamie's reporting, because I know that's going to be sound, right? And he doesn't write his headlines, I'm more than sure. All right. Columbia, State Senator Mia McLeod is jumping into the 2022 race for South Carolina governor, becoming the latest Democratic hopeful pursuing the party's nomination to challenge incumbent Republican Henry McMaster. The Columbia lawmaker was first elected to the South Carolina House in 2010 before winning a seat in the South Carolina Senate in 2016. If elected, she would be South Carolina's first black chief executive and the first black woman to serve as governor in history. I'm glad Jamie included that. She will be seeking the Democratic nomination against at least two other candidates. I want to stop right there, because word on the street is that there's going to be a couple more people, at least one other. We already know that we heard some grumblings about Justin Bamberg, right? And usually you could tell who's going to run for governor by how much press they've been doing and the type of press they've been doing and the type of exposure and visibility they've sought out. And that's a good thing. That's being savvy, right? And I know for me, y'all know, if you watch my Twitches, you know that I've been very much watching Miss McLeod and seeing how well she's been doing and being featured in Vice clips and being Vice News pieces and other national news stories. Mia has done a good job. She's had a couple of MSNBC hits as well, especially weighing in about, the brutal death penalty tactics now that we've kind of signed into law, that we signed into law, including, firing squad and some other archaic things. Mia's been very vocal. And also we saw her single-handedly fillet McMaster on his response to COVID with her response of his state address. And that's iconic. So we know, you could tell by that the party was probably behind her being that rising star. Even though we know Joe Cunningham's going to do Joe Cunningham things, people have been watching for Mia, right? So at least two other candidates. We know Gary Voter, an activist, is running. I can't take his campaign seriously yet, but let's watch out for anybody else, especially Justin Bamberg. Let's watch out for that. Not excited for that, being honest with you, not excited. But yeah, let's go. Let's get some fresh competition. I'm going to continue reading. I know I'm talking fast. No caffeine, though. Former U.S. Rep. Joe Cunningham of Charleston launched his campaign in April and began a statewide tour of 46 counties, including 100 breweries. I'm joking. Democratic activist Gary Voter has also said he's running. All right. McLeod is set to discuss her candidacy in more details this morning, y'all. This morning, June 3rd at 11 a.m. And that's why I have my phone in my hand. So last night, the call I got from someone embedded in the camp also forwarded me a press release. And it says here that Senator Mia McLeod hold a press conference with members of the community in Columbia. It says Senator McLeod will host press conference with members of the community to announce her bid for governor of South Carolina. I'm going to see the where. Oh, address we shared. But there was like RSVP information there as well. Yada, yada, yada. So that's interesting. Let me go back to the chat because I've been ignoring y'all here on Twitch. Evelyn, you said earlier you like geriatric millennial. I like it too. I'm gonna have it like if I get pregnant, I'm gonna have a geriatric pregnancy. These are terms, y'all. These are real terms. Like just hey, I'll embrace it. Once you get pregnant, like past 35, it's called a geriatric pregnancy or some shit. Crazy. Yeah, he loves breweries. Brewery tours. Oh my god. Oh my goodness. Yeah. All right. So that's that. Let me see. I don't. Here's Drew McKissick. We're gonna read this because Drew has a penchant for being disrespectful. And Drew, even though he was able to ward off Lynn Wood, which should have been easy because Lynn Wood is certifiably a problem. Drew McKissick has a tendency to be very dismissive because of the stronghold that Republicans have had over this party. Over the state. The stronghold that those on the right have had on the state. I guess you could walk around, like your shit don't stink, and that's what Drew does. Let's see what he wrote. This is my first time reading it with y'all. Okay, so South Carolina GOP Chairman Drew McKissick brushed off news of McLeod's candidacy, saying Democrats have consistently lost recent statewide races in South Carolina because, like McLeod, they're wrong on the issues that voters care about. No Democrat has won governor's race in South Carolina since 1998. That's true. That's around the time I left. What Drew McKissick does a lot of, he likes to dismiss, and that's his job too, is to downplay to the press. So he's actually doing his job, but you can do your job with a little bit more finesse. And also, I think there's a way to graciously acknowledge this historic bid without ceding any power or ceding any ground to the Dems. I think you could. I think especially with Drew McKissick coming out of this whole the Linwood debacle and these shenanigans and tactics, these Trumpian tactics, it's okay, Drew, if you exhibit a little graciousness and acknowledge the historic nature of this woman's bid, and you can still communicate strength and a firm hold of the issues and talk about the contrast between Republican values and Democratic values. You can do that. And I would argue that, especially, again, what I was trying to say, coming out of the Linwood debacle, changing the tenor of politics here probably would behoove you. If you continue on this whole divisive Trumpian path, you're going to breed more Lynn Woods. You're going to breed more ill-informed, erratic, disruptive, far right-leaning folks who are not, you need to me, this is what, and I'm not trying to give the GOP any pointers, nor would they take any advice from me, but this is what we're seeing on the national scale with Glenn McConnell versus, let's say, McCarthy, in terms of McCarthy's, reluctance to let go of Trump and Trumpian values because Trump is still very powerful. But when do you right the ship? When do you kind of maintain power? When do you get that power back from that one individual and strengthen the overall party? And so you see the GOP is in disarray right now because they really haven't figured out how that's going to go. And I would argue even in states that are firmly and solidly red, it's okay to show a little graciousness. That's it. That's what, it's just so disrespectful, especially when Crystal Matthews threw her hat in the ring for her Senate bid. I thought that was just really disrespectful. Let's go back to videos so I can stop talking your head off. Transition to some other news. Let me see, Jonik James, what you said over here in the Twitch chat real quick before I go on to some Nancy Mace news. Jonik James, you said you were shocked when you read geriatric pregnancy on your chart. I know my friend said it. My friend, bless her, when she had her beautiful, beautiful child, she mentioned that. I think that's where I learned the phrase. I'm like, damn, it's like that. Yeah, women don't have it easy. So other news this weekend. Let's do this. Let's do this. Harry Griffin. So they released the dash cam footage. I can literally talk over this because there's no real volume until he gets closer to the squad car. You see, let's just do this like game film. Let's see this. Okay, so this is Harry Griffin, and I'm gonna tell you straight up right now, no fat phobia. No fat phobia. we can tear this man apart without even touching what he looked like, what he looks like in terms of his weight, his expressions, and what comes out of his mouth. Fair game. And that t-shirt choice, I'll allow it. Y'all know, Nancy Mace's wardrobe attire will forever be something I will critique. So we're gonna do both sides, right? We're gonna do men and women. T-shirt choice, we could talk about it. We could talk about t-shirt choice. No fat phobia. See his mouth full of what's that stuff y'all call, like that chew? I don't know why I'm acting like I don't know what it is, but my granny and my great aunts chew that shit like all the time. Snuff or skull, SKOAL. All the like women in my mama's side chew that stuff. Justin, you said you're intrigued by Mia's campaign. I am too. Stay tuned because we might have some exclusives. I'm not saying, but I'm saying. I'm hoping and I'm praying. Evelyn, you said, and it totally looks like he has dip. Yes, dip in his lip. That's what it is. Dip, snuff, dip, skull, whatever you call it, right? Call it by its manufacturer name. Can we please address the huge amount of dip in his mouth? I'm catching up. The chat is there's a lag here, so I'm catching. Let's let it play. So it's really no volume here. And see, this is where I get mad about the whole dash cam, body cam thing. Like,
investigation 12032.
Yeah, you can only hear the squad car. You can't hear what they're saying. And I'm like, why don't we have some kind of caption video that's synced to his body cam that probably should be on?
Sky SC.
But I'm gonna ask y'all to help me walk this through. What is happening here? Because I don't see the sobriety test and I don't see a breathalyzer. So y'all let me know, what are we seeing here?
CY 9mm. Serial number is 477607, 477607.
So what happened? So like, did he refuse the breathalyzer? Did he refuse the sobriety test? And
Clear.
First of all, couldn't he even spit that stuff out before he got out the car? Or before, I don't know. That's I'm sorry, y'all. I know nicotine is addicted, and if you're addicted to nicotine and you don't want to be addicted, I have sympathy. But that is like, to me, just the more gross. It's a gross, beyond smoke. I can't stand cigarette smoke. I really can't. Like, cigar smoke can even bother me. But dip is just, I don't know what checkpoint this was. Probably refused. Okay, that's what lawyers tell you to do? Okay. Thank you, B-Man.
Central 7036 1028.
Yeah. B-Man, I'm out of candles, too.
Go to the first.
Like, I just finished my little beehive
Your
candle.
response is 239, RJF 239.
Okay, so you refuse. Oh, you think the dip is hiding the alcohol? Oh, wow. Roy, you say, I'm glad you don't do the nicotine. Yeah, you don't do that either. Okay. Yeah, me neither.
Number 2019 Toyota 4.
Oh, so he's hiding. He might be hiding alcohol.
That's Atlanta, North Charleston. 423, 422.
Oh, that is a good observation. That's why I love my viewers. What's up, Kat, on Facebook if you're watching? Jerome, if you're still watching, good morning on Facebook. Oh, okay. I want to know what's going on here. Justin, on Twitch, you say reckless speculation. Could have put the dip. Yeah, all y'all saying the same thing at once. Yep. Okay, now here's where you hear audio. Let me turn up the volume.
Okay. You hear me stopping there from a boss man? Yes, sir.
And you gonna hit? Oh, he spit the dip out.
Put the backs of my shoes. Yeah, even follow me.
So he asked to be uncuffed to put the backs of his shoes on.
I'm just gonna take this one off.
If you can't hear it.
Yes, sir. I understand.
Shoes only, and that's it.
So he's taking one cuff off.
Put my sunglasses in for you.
Yeah, I'll put them in there for you.
Thank you so much.
He's asking to have his sunglasses removed.
You want to put your head in it?
Yes, sir. May I go ahead and put my watch and my Citadel ring in there as well?
So he's asking to take off his watch.
Just
He's
make
gonna
it
take
easier.
off his own watch. I watched this part, and he's taking off his Citadel ring.
I can get that. Thank you.
I got you, boss. Appreciate it.
The cop is saying, "I got you, boss." I don't like that,
Yes, sir.
but he is being courteous. I can't.
No, I'm good.
Hey, let me know if it gets too hot or too cold.
Thank you.
Cold, more like too cold because I'm gonna have
It's,
the
it's
AC.
tight in here, but
We'll get you on the way here, man.
Now this, y'all, this is where it starts looking like a scary ultrasound, and I can't, like, it's just, it's like a really, I know we already talked about geriatric pregnancies too much. This is like a scary ultrasound. You want to have a nightmare tonight? Yeah, so the video is just this long ride. Wow, they just released the whole thing. This long ride, and it just stops. I didn't watch this whole thing because Evelyn, you said I don't think it's wild that they gave us the whole. You think it's wild that they gave you a whole. Yeah, you do think it's wild that they gave you the whole 27 minutes. Yeah, I think so. Let me pause it here. Scary ultrasound. Beginning of a horror movie. I honestly do think that's weird too. But you say it's kind of sus, Roy, right? So this is why I think they did it, because Harry came out, and let's just get out of this real quick, right? Harry came out here, and this is the follow-up to the initial piece. Shout out Evelyn, you're the one that peeped the original story. I think is linked here. Yeah, the original story from the Post and Courier from Stephen Hobbs was headlined: Charleston City Councilman Harry Griffin arrested on suspicion of DUI. Shout out to Evelyn and mad folks in the comment section who said, like, is it suspicion, either DUI or it's not? But I guess because he declined, but we saw in the story that it says Griffin was booked into Berkeley County Jail around 9:30 p.m. on May 29th and faces one count of DUI with a blood alcohol level of less than 0.10%, records show. And I believe it was 0.08% that's what was reported. So but shout out to you for like the framing. I think they released the video because he came out with this Charleston City Councilman Harry Griffin proclaims his innocence. So I think they didn't want their integrity to be questioned, and so they got out and like, yo, we're gonna release the whole tape about like how to stop. That's what I think. I don't know. But as I mentioned on a couple of Facebook lives, or at least one one Instagram live, other people raised some questions about, like, how did he get bonded out on a Sunday, on a holiday weekend, on a $500 his own personal recognizance bond. If anyone in the chat can tell me how that happened or give me more information, whether it be on Facebook, y'all are responding to my scary ultrasound. If y'all could tell me how, like, hey Tisha, good morning. How did he bond out on a holiday weekend on his own recognizance? Like, is that typical? Is that normal? Like, somebody let me know in the chat. Let me read a little bit of the story, and then we're gonna hop back over. Charleston City Councilman Harry Griffin proclaimed his innocence in a Facebook post the night of May 30th, following his arrest. The day before his arrest the day before on suspicion of DUI. Griffin was booked into Berkeley County Jail around 9:30 p.m. on May 29th and faces 1 count of DUI, blood alcohol level. Yeah. So it's illegal to drive in South Carolina with a blood alcohol level of 0.08% or higher. I'm going to click on the original story because I felt like they reported his blood alcohol level. I might have read that wrong. Let's see. Griffin, who posted bond, did not respond to a text or phone call seeking comment. Deputy Carly Drayton of Berkeley County Sheriff's Office said in an email that an incident report would likely not be available until after Memorial Day. At least they mentioned the Proud Boys in there. Hold on, let me see at the top. So was it like, y'all had to tell me about checkpoints too. I can't even remember the last time I was stopped at a South Carolina checkpoint. I can't remember. Again, I try to stay away from folly. I stay away from and I'm off the road a lot. But so if you're stopped at a checkpoint, like, does that mean that you did something, that you were driving erratically or something, or they just stopping you randomly and they asking, like, what is that? Can someone break that down for me? I'm really not trying to be dense, but just help me with that. Like, so why was he arrested? If he was arrested with a suspicion of DUI, like, what may have led to the arrest? It says Charleston City Councilman Harry Griffin was arrested with suspicion of DUI, was booked. If you're how do you get from I'm just chewing dip and I refuse a breathalyzer to in handcuffs and booked? I'm gonna read. Let me see. Anyone said anything? Letitia, regarding the being jailed over a holiday weekend, you're saying you're supposed to sit there all holiday. That's what a lot of people were saying. I'm glad I asked you. Thank you, Letitia. Over here, we got a public defender in the chat on Twitch. So Stephen, you said that's actually standard. Okay. I have to represent clients at bond court on Sunday sometimes. Okay. So Stephen is saying, Letitia, Stephen is saying that is standard, that you could get bonded out on a Sunday. Okay. All right. Let me see. B-Man, what'd you say? Power and privilege. I do think power and privilege weighed in there, Stephen. Let me know if I'm off with that. All right. Nicole, you said you hit a checkpoint going out of South Carolina. They stopped everyone. Got you. Evelyn, you say, I think they set them up on holiday weekends to stop everyone, like coming from partying in spots like that on the beach. Okay. That makes sense. Nicole, you said you showed them your license. They even peeked in my car. Okay, they peeked in your car. You showed them your license. They pulled over. They pulled over several cars. Right. So they did more of a thorough search. Okay. You saw several other cars that had like their car searched a little bit more thoroughly. All right. Deputy said there was a strong smell of alcohol coming from the car when they talked to him at the checkpoint. All right. Did I just gloss over that? Booked. He may have been accused of driving under the influence, blood alcohol levels. And it just states the law. Posted bond. Stephen said that's not too unusual. We get that. Or you said that's standard. Let me use your word. You said standard. Let me go to, let's see if, the deputy said that there was a small, strong, I believe that, and I think that's why he had to chew the dip in his mouth. Let me see if WCBD had any reporting on it over the weekend. Let's see if they did, and if they said anything extra that wasn't included in the Post and Courier. Let's go back. Remembering, let me see, Goose Creek, 3 days ago, 45th, Spoleto. It's a little too far back, I think. I don't see any top news here. I'm going real fast, so I don't see it. Nope. But that's interesting. Thank y'all for adding a little bit more context. Same facade, you checking in on Twitch. You're saying if they detect alcohol, cannabis, or anything that gives them probable cause, they'll do more of a thorough search. That makes sense. Thank you. All right, let's go ahead and turn to Nancy Mace. We'll keep talking about the, I didn't read that deputy part. The deputy said there was strong order. I didn't read that part, but that's good to know. Let's get to this story. ugh.
Woke up this morning to graffiti on my home, on my front steps, sidewalk, and street with Antifa symbolism and expletives directed at me personally. And it makes me incredibly sad. I'm a mom. I have 2 kids in middle school who live here.
Keisha, I see your question on Facebook.
No family should ever be treated this way. And I get that I'm a member of Congress. And
all right, I'm gonna stop this propaganda. All right, so I want it reporting, not just her like unfettered, not just her like her making her case about rhetoric, and all that. Let's see if there is another one. Oh yeah, we're gonna get to that too. We're gonna get to the Denmark BC statue. Look, keeping an eye on time because at 8:30, maybe even a little bit before 8:30, Evelyn, just so you know. Let's do Nancy Mace. Maybe a little bit before 8:30, we'll see. Yeah, so this is, from the Hill. This is what I wanted. No, this is gonna be her unfiltered too. I think that's what we just showed. We'll do this week. 4 days ago. I don't want to see her on Fox News.
In the Low Country are looking for the vandals who damaged the home of Congresswoman Nancy Mace. Officials say it happened over the holiday weekend. WSAV News 3's Andrew Davis talked with Mace one-on-one, and he is joining us now live from our Low Country newsroom.
Well, Congresswoman Mace says the vandalism deeply troubling and shocking. That's how she calls it. Now, just over 24 hours after vandals defaced her Charleston home, the Congresswoman also says the incident isn't going to stop her.
It's jarring.
Okay, anyway. So real quick. So one thing about this Nancy Mace story that I have questions. It seems like, let me exit out real quick and I'll come back to it maybe. It seems like, right. So in this story from Live 5 News, I'm not even going to play the clip here because it's
no secret that we're living in challenging times that have pushed.
I'm not going to play the clip here, but this is back from, I think, October 7th, right? So back in October, the police say that Nancy Mace's car was vandalized and keyed. Now she was out at the Nordstrom's rack, right? Nordstrom rack. I always make it possessive or plural. She was at Nordstrom rack, right? And according to this story, right, it says that officers say, let me blow it up a little bit so y'all can see it a little bit better too. All right. Officers say they first responded to a call from Mace at 2:03 p.m. Tuesday at the Bowman Road Nordstrom Rack parking lot. Police say the words "F-U" were scratched into the driver's side back passenger door with a long scratch in driver's door. Incident reports state that Mace did not suspect anyone of vandalism. Say that again. Incident reports state that Mace did not suspect anyone of vandalism. Does that mean she didn't have a specific suspect? Nor did she park next to anyone or have anyone follow her into the store. Police say they have checked surrounding surveillance footage, but are yet to find an image of a suspect. The MPPD said it's an ongoing investigation. Does anyone know what happened with this investigation? So you got the cameras of Nordstrom Rack. You're in Mount Pleasant, y'all. Let's keep it real. This ain't some podunk town. You're in Mount Pleasant. You're in a shopping center where there's a lot of, I'm over there all the time. I love me a Nordstrom's Rack, but like you got a lot of highfalutin people over there. So was this ever solved? And what I'm trying to say is that there seems to be a lot of there seems to be stories when it comes to Nancy Mace. She usually makes the news for two things. Well, she used to make news for making for posting sophomoric jokes and Photoshop memes to demean Democratic members of Congress or Democratic lawmakers. That's what I know her from, as being a troll, a professional troll. But also what we saw, and we saw this most recently with the Post and Courier. We also saw that with her very, very capable comms team, her create this moderate image where she relies heavily on victimhood. She's both strong and a victim. She's both a record-breaking, first female graduate of the Citadel, and she's also someone who's the target of so much animus, the target of so much violence and vandalism. And of course, what y'all pointed out, which everyone across the country, it feels like, I'm gonna go to Twitter, what folks pointed out about the vandalism they thought was odd was that if it's an anarchist, if it's let me go to my profile, go to my likes. I liked a lot of crazy stuff this weekend. Let me not let y'all see all my business. Okay, so here. Yeah, white folk is full now. It's Pride Month and people don't like see queer black people kissing and hugging and loving and touching. That's a terrible thing. Hold on, let me go to my I'm gonna go to that thread that y'all been sending me from that white chick, California. Y'all love Nancy Mace stuff too. I wish y'all get this excited about other stuff. Here we go. Imani Gandhi. Let me start with somebody, a woman of color, a black woman. Angry black lady, shout out. So this was the funniest tweet for me of the weekend about Nancy Mace. Says, wow, you found a rare group of anarchists that are super into government and passing legislation. Thoughts and prayers at this obviously difficult time, and I hope you get all that spray paint from under your fingernails. Now I don't think Nancy Mace, y'all become CSI experts real quick over the weekend. I don't think Nancy Mace sprayed this, right? I don't think so. I think it was just some like shout out to all of y'all who pointed to the other vandalism that is remarkably similar to this outside of the Bishop England High School. You also, of course, we know that Nancy Mace's home, this residence at least, is in Daniel Island. What we found was odd. Y'all pointed this out as well. What was odd was that all of the vandalism was on asphalt and none of it was on like these white steps. None of it was on the house. Nothing. Right? So, that was odd. If you're gonna fuck some shit up, I'm assuming you would do that by like really trying to, like, the white steps are right there. Right? And then the messages don't make sense. Past the PRO Act is over here on the house awning, past the PRO Act, and then you have, it looks like the Avengers. It don't look like anarchy. It looks like the Avengers. So someone Googled things and Google phrases and just started doing things. But I don't think Nancy did it. I think Imani Gandhi was just being tongue in cheek. But what I do think happened, I do think there's some random like kids or whomever. Look, this is a sitting member of Congress. This is not even just a sitting member of Congress. This is a high profile member of Congress, right? She's got Ring doorbell cameras. She has a sign in her yard, right? Right here. Isn't this visible right here? Isn't that the security sign right here? So I'm assuming you would have mad cameras around your house, not just the Ring doorbell. You'd have some other things around, and maybe some other security protocols around. And so, like the Nordstrom thing, I'm left with questions like, well, where's the footage? The police? We know the police responded to this one and to the Nordstrom rat call, but where's the footage? And I know all that's not going to be made publicly available, but she doesn't even mention the footage. She doesn't even mention, what she'll. Oh, I'm gonna pull up the camera footage. I'm gonna share our footage with the police. She doesn't mention that. She just goes right into fundraising mode, and this is classic Nancy Mace. And so I don't know who did this, but they gifted her political opportunities to hit every news outlet that will have her, including Newsmax and Fox News, to play the victim card. And I do not think she was targeted by liberals. It doesn't make sense. What was scrawled on her house does not make sense. And the one thing about Nancy Mace, she keeps saying, oh, my kids live here, my kids live here. Nancy, you're a parent. Of course, she keeps saying the obvious. My kids live here. My kids. Yeah, they live in the house with you. Yeah. My kids just rode that bike that was not even knocked over. My kids just rode that bike. My kids woke up and asked, are they safe? This is what she's tweeting and whatnot. My kids woke up today terrified. Are they safe? You live in Daniel Island, sweetie bop. You live in Daniel Island. You're good. That's annexed to be Charleston PD. Call Luther Reynolds. If you feeling under, like, so now we got what? Now, do we need curfews over in Daniel Island now too? Do we need curfews and all the other stuff? Like, calm down. Like, and the nation or whomever just eats this up. Like, no, you weren't targeted. This is very consistent. The if you call it penmanship, I don't know. The handwriting in John Hancock looks eerily similar to the Bishop England High School vandalism. Let me hop over in the comment section because I'm going on and on without reading the comments. But it's just so many questions. Like, where's the footage? Where's the Nordstrom Rack footage? Where is the Ring doorbell and your security system footage? You're a member of Congress. Let me tell you something. If I get elected, I don't care if I'm elected dog catcher. Oh, security gonna be on point. Security, looking over my shoulder, sensors, all that's gonna be on point. Seriously. Window locks, everything. I don't care if I like family or not, kids or not. So, so where is what was on the footage? And like, who was gonna take like was it off? Cause that took some time to scroll that stuff. That took some time. So to me, you would be able to catch somebody and then not only your cameras, you live in Daniel Island. Everyone got cameras. Everyone has surveillance systems and alarms. Those are well-appointed homes. All of those homes have some sort of security mechanism in place. So if you don't got the footage, neighbor got the footage, somebody got the footage. Let me see. And I mean, we'll see who did it. But they wasn't no damn Biden supporters. It wasn't that. It was just some stupid vandals. All right, raise money. Let me go. Let me skip down. Yep, Johnny James, you said the same thing. Where's the Ring video? Right? Comparing the handwriting. I don't think that's her handwriting. I just think that I think people just really CSI in that. And like somebody said, some people watching Mayor of Easttown and getting real excited. Hey, they get the Mariska Hargitay, SVU hat on or whatever. I know it's not that type of crime, but you get what I'm saying. All right, Saint Facade, you says, who in the hell in Mount P would be keying cars in the open parking lot? For real. Right? Seriously. But where's the footage from Nordstrom Rack? And that's why she had to say in the report, I don't think it would happen here. Okay. But you made us think about that too. Someone made a good point that her three of her handwriting quirks are, I see that, but I don't know. I just think it's hard to write in spray paint, and maybe I saw it too. I saw the dotting of the I's, I saw the A's, but then when you look at the Bishop England vandalism, it's the same A, it's the same kind of scrawl, but they said it was like against Biden. So I don't know. Like, look at the Bishop England vandalism and then compare those two. All right. So I did see the comparison. I shared it on my page as well. Why was code enforcement cleaning the spray paint off her house? Our taxpayer dollars pay for that. I don't know. I didn't know that was code enforcement. What the hell is code enforcement? Is that something that occurs in gentrified communities? Code enforcement. Tell me more, Meg. I don't even know what that is. Seriously, I don't know what that is. Facts. I'm keeping my security on. Yeah. Absolutely. And then Nicole, you say someone else said it's facing the wrong way. Like if you're going to tag someone else's house, writing would face a different direction. That's what I thought too. It was weird. Let me look at Facebook, see if anyone said anything. Nah, she playing on folks' fears, like Tisha said. Yeah, it's interesting. Let me play just a couple more seconds before I puke.
And it's shocking because this is my home.
Jarring for Congresswoman Nancy Mace.
She keeps saying this is my home. We know that. We know. Typically homes and moms, they live with their kids. It's something about her femaleness and something about her motherhood that she often positions as the most fragile aspects of her makeup. It's something about her being a mom. She used her kids during the insurrection as well. Your kids weren't even in the city, Ma. Your kids weren't even in DC when this shit happened. Your kids weren't, or if they were in a hotel. Like, right? I think they were in a hotel. Or did they go back home? But your kids were not near you. Your kids were not in there huddled under the desk with you. I know you wish you did have that for an optic. But your kids weren't there. Like, she keeps doing that thing where, like, her being a mom and her being a woman are things that really are so uniquely fragile that we have to really, really care about.
Mace to wake up Memorial Day morning and see black spray paint on the wall.
Yeah, AOC can talk about how terrified she was, and she attacked her, the veracity of her own like fear. Like she attacked the honesty of AOC. Never said they came down the hall and came at her. She said how she had fears and how she like things leading up to, and she was outlining the overall experience. It was just really weird, and how she'll seize on any other woman in Congress if they felt terrified. Like, what if AOC just like, yo, where's the video? What if AOC just like, yo, just show us the Ring doorbell? She'd have a stroke.
Walls and sidewalks in front of her home.
Spray painted, no gods, no masters, all politicians are bastards.
Mace posted this video showing the words and anarchist symbols shortly after the incident.
It's violating, because this is my personal home. Everyone.
What the fuck is a personal home? She seriously, she's like programming people by saying the same things over and over again, like the Manchurian Candidate. This is my personal home, as opposed to your professional home. What the fuck?
Regardless of how you feel politically, or if you're a Democrat or Republican, all of us should feel safe in our own homes.
This is the second time Mace says she's been targeted by vandals, the first last year during her congressional campaign.
Whomever did this, one person or multiple people, if they thought that I was going to be intimidated, well, they thought wrong. I'm not going to stop doing the work that I was elected to do for South Carolina's 1st congressional district because someone disagrees with me.
The vandalism hasn't been limited to the Palmetto State. The homes of both Senator Mitch McConnell and Speaker Nancy Pelosi were hit in January after Congress didn't pass the $2,000 stimulus check increase. And an axe-wielding man was caught on tape in December smashing glass windows at the office of North Dakota Senator John Hoeven. Mace calls all of these incidents, including the Capitol riots and various...
First of all, you comparing apples to kumquats. The Capitol riots, that ain't the same thing as some damn Lowe's spray paint. Let me check over in the chat. This is what we do. Evelyn's probably getting ready for the interview, but Evelyn, get ready, because we also gonna talk about how like things get conflated in the news and how it leads to confusion. And I know that's gonna sound like a weird turn that we're about to make into human trafficking conversation, but how sex work and human trafficking get conflated all the time. That's why when you all watch the news, what you consume, listen to what's being said over and over again. Listen to the images that they keep flashing. So they showing you all these acts of vandalism. And I think that's valid to include in this piece, and also showing that it's bipartisan. It's not just Republicans getting hit. It's Democrats as well. But to add the insurrection, this is interesting. But I mean, this is right-wing, white nationalist, terroristic violence here. I don't know what it had. Like, this is not what happened. This is not what's happening in the country. There's not just a bunch of people who are crazed about their politics so much that they just want to lay siege to government officials. I don't know why they put this in the piece, because that is a whole separate conversation.
Violent street protests around the United States, troubling.
I really want people to take a step back, to hit pause, and think about what they're saying. Think about how.
But we're gonna use her soundbite next time she fires off a tweet that is the meaning that is the Photoshop of someone, a Photoshop or an attack on someone she doesn't agree with. We're gonna remember this whole take a step back and rhetoric is ramped up and yada yada. Everything she's been saying on this circuit to raise money, right? Because she's a wannabe Marjorie Taylor Greene. Next time she fires off something that's tasteless, remember that. Like, I want someone to take the audio, dub the audio of this interview over that tweet, and like, y'all will let it rock, because she does not practice what she preaches.
How we're treating our neighbors, and to treat others the way you would truly want to be treated in this country, because our words, our rhetoric, it has consequences. These things are affecting real people with real lives.
Our cognitive dissonance over in Twitch. What we're saying in the chat. Justin, you saying you're going to be reckless again? But doesn't smell right to me. Doesn't smell right to me either. You have to change your bio on Twitter to No Gods, No Masters, Pastor Proact. I think you will not be alone with changing your bios to something with that in there. Okay. Oh, Evelyn did say that. It's like livability and tourism department, basically the city's HOA. Okay. But why they doing on her house? Why they spraying her house? Even if it's a kid and vandal, even if it's a kid vandal on video, you said this earlier, Justin. Even if it's a kid vandal, she has the video and knows it wasn't a dangerous. Right? She knows it wasn't dangerous. She has the video. Mommy, you should run for office, right? Remember them precocious kids? Mommy, is it safe? She said I want someone to do like a montage of all the times she said what her kids have said. Like this morning, I think this morning or yesterday, she tweeted like the kids woke up and says, "Mom, are we safe?" Then one of her kids said, "Mom, when are you gonna run?" When they saw an ad, when Joe Cunningham's ad came on. Like her kids are like low key her best operatives. And I'm not going at her kids, but the way she always quotes her kids as if they really said that. Please. All I cared about was Sunny Delight and PlayStation. Not even PlayStation. Sunny Delight and Super Nintendo. I could care less about my parents. For a little. Is the allowance still on the table every Friday? Okay, that's all I cared about my parents' job. Is the allowance on the table? Ben, Trudy, where's my lunch money? Ben, Trudy, will we have to share Game Boys this year, or are we going to get separate consoles? That's what I was talking to my mom about. Mom, Dad, can we get Kid Cuisine or not? I want Kid Cuisine frozen meals. I was not like, no. I was like, hey, Mom, here are my thoughts on public policy and your chances of running for Congress. Like, I'm not doing it. All right, let me stop. I'm gonna text. I'm old too. Like, what's Sunny Delight? I'm gonna tell just in case Evelyn, in case you're not watching, but head to Zoom. I'm gonna go ahead and open up the Zoom right now. Okay, like, so I just say, Evelyn, if you're listening, go ahead and head to Zoom. I'm going to head over here now and let's get it cracking. And okay, so she's over there. So I'm gonna hit refresh real quick. First of all, you know what I'm gonna do? Wait, let me switch my camera real quick. All right, let's switch my camera. Sorry I didn't get to all the chat. Y'all been chatting it up. Thank you. All right, so Evelyn's in there. So I'm going to start the meeting. And I'm going to just do it over here, and then I'm going to switch cameras, y'all. Y'all know how it go. All right.
Recording in progress.
Oh, man, I don't want to record. Let's stop.
Recording stopped.
All right. And make sure I have OBS Streamlabs. I'm going to keep my camera off. I'm going to admit Evelyn real quick. I know I'm talking to myself, y'all. I gotta talk myself through it, tell myself everything that Jared taught me. Hey, just setting up. Okay, how you doing?
I'm doing good.
Okay, I'm gonna switch you over so people can see you. Now I'm gonna be off camera, but we just gonna talk, okay? So, but I'm gonna have. Okay. Cancel. Don't do that. Now I'm gonna switch my view. Yay. Okay, y'all. Here's Evelyn, y'all. Can we I'm gonna give like clap emojis? Can we do clap emojis? I'm sorry. So like hopefully those who want to, some of my smart followers and whatnot, if you like, I would love to have more of you all on Twitch like Evelyn, but so you can see it, put a face to the names in the chat. How you doing, Evelyn?
I'm doing all right. I'm ready. I'm ready to talk.
Good. Okay. Hold on one second. Let me scroll down. Okay, everyone's saying, hey, girl. Everyone's clapping on Twitch. The Twitch fam is in the chat. Let me see what's over. Diane. Yep. Okay. So I wanted to holler at you, Evelyn, because you and I off of Twitch, you and I are friends personally. And one thing that I'm so grateful for is that I found someone who's invested in social justice issues just like I am But what I really, really honor and what I really enjoy in my friendships are folks who have a different lens or have a different dedication or different commitment. And just introduce yourself to people, I guess, broadly, and then we'll talk about your specific interests in and around what we're going to be talking about today, human trafficking and other things adjacent. But yeah, go ahead and intro yourself.
Yeah. I'm Evelyn. I'm actually currently a master's student in social work. So I'm diving even deeper into a lot of stuff that I was already interested in. I'm by trade, I'm a seamstress, obviously doing a little bit of a career change here, but, hoping to focus more on, the social justice issues that are important to me. Sex worker rights and, all the dialogue surrounding that is definitely my focus. Mm-hmm. And I do feel, it's one of these areas that is at the intersection of so many other issues, police brutality, mm-hmm. racism, transphobia, immigration, there's just so many things that intersect in the sex worker rights movement. So it really kind of covers almost everything that every other social movement is dealing with these days.
Yeah, and I think that's the part that folks perhaps haven't made that connection. And also, I think folks are either intimidated, perhaps their maybe personal values that won't allow us to have these really important and nuanced conversations about sex work. If you follow me, y'all know I'm pro sex work. I'm pro ho. I'm pro decrim of sex work. A lot of my more recent, I think, opinions about sex work in the conversation have been informed by following Evelyn on social media and also having these conversations. But I think you can do like I know, and I don't believe that the South is like that. People don't have these opinions. I'm not of the belief that folks, hey, we know sex work is crack-a-lacking. We know it's here. And so I know that people have varied opinions about it. I don't want to assume that everyone is just conservative about this thing. We have to talk about this just as much as we talk about other issues, as you kind of alluded to, Evelyn. This is all linked. Like a lot of these issues can have some overlap. And I know I just rambled a little bit, but what I wanted to do today was what I witnessed through my more, I guess, newly focusing eyes. What I've noticed and picked up on is the conversation around human trafficking and sex work have been conflated. Like people conflate the two oft, and also what we've seen as we saw the emergence of Q, and shout out to my followers who are in the yoga scene. They've brought to my attention that the conversation around sex trafficking and child sex trafficking has just really taken off because of QAnon, because of a lot of conspiracy theory, and also because of influencer culture and the pastel Q. I know that's a lot, but can you kind of tell folks how sex trafficking is talked about and why it's problematic, how it's talked about here locally, and why you think it's problematic?
Sure. So I think it's a good place to start is some definitions, because I think there's a lot of fuzziness around this, and some of it is definitely intentional by lawmakers and law enforcement. So sex work is really an umbrella term. And this can cover a lot of things. This can cover full service sex work, traditionally referred to as prostitution, though that's, a term not really in favor in, among sex work advocates anymore. Mm-hmm. It can cover camming. It can cover stripping. Nude modeling is kind of that depends. Dominatrix work, porn performers. It's a whole bunch of different things. So, just to get that out of the way, because I think some people have a more narrow view of what sex work is. Yes. Now all of those things are varying degrees. Some are legal, some are not. They're all stigmatized. They're all right. There's legislation that affects all of them, even if they are legal. And then trafficking, on the other hand, so forced labor is the big umbrella of that. Mm-hmm. And, trafficking means forced labor. Yeah. However, that just the word trafficking has become really condensed in the past few years to really only refer to sex trafficking.
Wow. Right. And I just I wanted to time out there, because if you live in South Carolina, and it's something that my brother and I, we picked up on, and when we were younger and we would have summer jobs. And I'm not saying there was a lot of illegal things, but you could tell that there was, the folks were being brought into this area, especially this tourist city, for the express purpose of being used as labor. And a lot of times that labor was exploited. And so while sex trafficking is something that catches our attention, and we want to just really have these really, I guess, passionate opinions about, I'm glad you made the distinction between it's forced. The trafficking part means forced labor, and that is not just exclusive to sex there are all kinds of trafficking that take place probably here, right?
Right. So actually, and it's really difficult to get accurate stats in the United States, but worldwide, the International Labor Organization has a big report from I can't remember the year, but it's within within the past 5 years or so. Of international incidents of forced labor, and sex trafficking actually only accounts for 19%, which is, of course, we don't want it to happen at all. Right. But the undue emphasis placed on it, domestic work is the highest. Is the industry with the largest percentage of trafficking victims.
That's what I was trying to say. Inartfully, that's what I've come across as a young teenager, even was like the domestic work. And there was a story, what was that publication a few years ago? I want to say The Atlantic, about this person who grew up with a slave in their house. I believe I don't want to get the wrong country, but people like there are segments of our communities that have trafficking, that are very familiar with it, and we just don't talk about it. But and you're saying that what gets sensationalized is sex trafficking, but you're saying that domestic work trafficking is really a problem. Yeah,
that's really agriculture and restaurant, I think, are the next two.
Exploitation.
And construction, it's huge too.
Yeah.
So those are all huge industries in Charleston. So if we can extrapolate those percentages locally, we can assume there's more people being exploited in, hotels, restaurants, and construction.
Okay. Yep.
And it's also, it is a gradient, and it is a gray area, because there is sexual exploitation that happens under forced labor, and vice versa. So it's reductionist to just focus on these specific cases of sex trafficking and not looking at the bigger picture. Another problem that happens a lot is people participating in sex work voluntarily, even if it's economic coercion, is sometimes conflated with trafficking. There have been people charged with trafficking themselves, which, if you look at the definition of trafficking, that's impossible. But it's a way to, as you mentioned, like Q and, all this stuff, it's become really trendy. It's a hot button issue. It's like, sex trafficking, and they can get a lot of funding coming in for that.
Right. And, I think because it creates like these really clear-cut victims in their head.
Exactly. Right. There's this narrative of the Taken narrative.
Yeah, the movie Taken.
They're coming to take your daughter.
Exactly.
And that's just not common. That's really an outlying situation. What's far more common, especially for sex trafficking, is familial trafficking. So families are in poverty, and they use their children to pay bills or whatever. Which is horrific. And we can see that it all comes back to poverty. It's like, we need to get people resources. We need to fix these larger societal ills if we really long-term want to reduce instances of all trafficking.
Right. So let me ask you a question. Why do you think this issue has caught fire in our wellness community? Do you have any observations?
Well, so here I think is a good place to kind of go into the history a little bit, because I see a very clear continuation of what, from the very beginning of the anti-trafficking movement to now.
Okay.
and it always involves the same type of people. So, you know, in the night, we're going to go way back.
Okay.
But I know you love history, so it's cool. So in the 19th century, you know, prostitutes, using the language of the time, were just looked upon as like fallen women. Like, oh, okay, whatever. That's this other class of people. They're doing them. We don't really like it, but they're just going to do whatever. Around the turn of the 20th century and a little bit before, there started being a lot of hysteria around white slavery. And this is still a term that's used today. In fact, a lot of things that were used by this movement are still, almost copy paste today.
Oh, wow.
And because there was an influx of immigrants, and there was a lot of, and, you know, women were, you know, as the Industrial Revolution, women were going out and working for themselves, maybe living alone or with other women in a big city, you know, not living with the family anymore. And so there was this whole panic about, you know, based in racism and xenophobia, that these brown foreigners were going to come and steal your beautiful, innocent little white daughter and sell her into slavery. There are documented cases of that happening, but again, it's not prevalent.
Right.
It's not the dominant thing. And so there was all, social workers, settlement house workers, kind of, you know, like the progressive movement, often overlapping with, what were they called? You know, the, anti-alcohol.
Yeah. Like prohibition type, like,
right. So the temperance movement.
Oh, temperance. Okay. Yeah. I was trying to get there. Yeah.
Right. Which, you know, like came from a good place, because they're like, oh, men are violent and beating up their wives and going to sex workers, like alcohol's a problem.
Right.
Which it's, maybe it exacerbates. Anyway, that's a whole other thing. So there was a lot of kind of like do-gooder thing of like, oh, we need to save these women. They're all victims. And, we can see how that has come forward to today into very similar things. The anti-trafficking movement uses a lot of co-opted language from, the anti-carceral system, the anti-slavery movement, again, using white slavery. And so it's like, well, what if there's a trafficking victim who's not white?
It's crazy. Yeah, that part. And it's crazy how, like, what I'm thinking is how white, this is the things that the institutions that they create to keep folks in bondage that are not white. That's the thing that they're using to stoke fears among white folk. And I'm also thinking about how explicit, like how we know that Black women were trafficked or brought here on slave ships from Africa for the express purpose of, you can't even call it prostitution, just sex trafficking. Like, it's in the paper, like in our local papers here in Charleston. But anyway, it's just funny, like around those same time periods, this rhetoric has emerged from white communities, stoking fear of white slavery. This is interesting. Yeah.
Right. And so it's just a clear continuation of that. I mean, you see, I'm sure some people watching have seen the billboards and the ads of, from these large, international anti-trafficking organizations that show like a scared little blonde white girl with like mascara running down her cheeks and, either a Black hand over her mouth or a, menacing dark figure in the background. And it's super racist. Yeah. And it's not indicative of real situations. And so you can see the same, racist, xenophobic rhetoric being used still today.
Yeah, someone, Nicole on the chat, let me see, I'm just going to read what you put in the chat, Nicole. The online groups for military here in the area have a ton of watch your kids, this happened to me at Walmart or, or wherever shop, right? Like, so there are a lot of posts, I guess, with this rhetoric Nicole is pointing out. And then same facade, you said, she was talking about the whole prohibition, cannabis being rooted in xenophobia. Yeah, like, what was that old movie from the 50s?
Reefer madness.
Yeah, reefer madness. Yeah, being rooted in xenophobia and anti-blackness. Absolutely, those are just two observations I wanted to lift up. But yeah, and I just see it so like it's all over yoga though. Like it's like let's talk about, and it's with these stats. Like Evelyn, it's got to drive you crazy. Like to see these numbers, like it look like they're pulled out of thin air, but they're not. But like,
they are though, and I can actually debunk some of this. So I'm going to just address the most common one.
Please.
You'll see all over the place, 300,000 children are in sexual slavery or being sexually exploited every year. That's when you see all over the place. So where that came from was a 2001 University of Pennsylvania study, which cited 300,000 children at risk for exploitation. Now, how they defined exploitation was and this was up to age 21. So we're talking 3 years of actual adults here. Also.
Wow. Yeah.
And they defined it as, some possibilities were nude modeling, stripping, looking at porn, things where it's right.
Very
okay. So
broad.
Every kid probably, most kids look at porn by the time they're 21.
Yep.
So this is people at risk for exploitation, including these things that are definitely not sex trafficking. And so that people have taken that number and run with it and saying this is the actual number of children being sex trafficked every single year, which is not accurate. So, and you can see, unfortunately, like this is one area where, there's a lot of areas, but particularly this one, where people are allowed to just run with these numbers and media does not fact check it. Media does not check up on this and ask where these numbers came from. They're happy to run with it.
And because it sounds so scary and
exactly.
I think here
and scariness raises money.
And that we just saw that with Nancy Mace. like, yep, yeah, they're coming to Daniel Island. They're coming to get us. They're coming to, I'm surprised. Somebody said on Twitter, I'm surprised she didn't, or whomever didn't scroll blacks rule on there, because that would have really got people scared. But back to this. What I'm also seeing, Evelyn, this is where I'm putting in my own personal, issue in it, which is probably not as important to you, but the use of influencer culture to take this message, the message that's laden with all this misinformation, influencer culture coming in. And I'm seeing a lot of people who I think that, I don't want to use the word traffic too much, but I was going to say traffic and desirability, but people who do have a certain level of, I guess, of desirability, carrying out this message. I don't know if you've noticed that or not. I've seen a lot of like the Bravo moms or the wife of an MMA star who's, very, very provocative or very attractive. I'm using quotation marks. But like I'm seeing that a lot, like influencers coming in. I don't know what that connect is. Have you observed anything about that? It might just be my personal grievance though. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's definitely, there was when FOSTA was passed in 2018, there was a huge campaign from Hollywood, Amy Schumer.
Oh, wow. What's FOSTA again? What's FOSTA?
Oh, so FOSTA is, let me see if I can remember.
That's okay. Well, you can
Fighting Online Sex Trafficking Act, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So, which again is the latest in, this history of anti-trafficking legislation that actually just makes it worse. So to try and briefly do this, FOSTA amended. So it's always been illegal. I mean, sex trafficking is illegal. Right. There are laws in place, federal laws against this. Like they didn't need to do anything else. What FOSTA did was basically weaken Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act and opens up websites to being sued if they. So,
like the back pages, So
interestingly enough, Backpage was seized and taken down before FOSTA was put into law, therefore proving they didn't need FOSTA to go after places they wanted to go after.
Right.
So, it's an unconstitutional law. It applies retroactively.
Oh, wow.
And it infringes on free speech, and it is being challenged based on those problems. So
celebrities kind of were used, and this is where the influencer model. This is why I got into trouble here, trying to point out that this is how subtle you feel like you're getting behind, which is something that's like an easy stance to take. Like, oh, I'm against this thing, and you get these celebrities to weigh in after making this argument based on either erroneous claims or fake stats. But yeah, the use of someone who's popular or desirable to carry this message is just crazy. But I didn't mean to cut you off, but yeah.
No, I mean, but that's exactly it. Like, they're like, hey, we're doing this thing that's against child sex trafficking. Is someone going to be like, no, I really like child sex trafficking? No one's going to say that. So it's an easy stance to get behind and unfortunately, historically, sex worker voices have not been heard. It's not that they're not talking, it's just that people are not listening. So, it's really interesting. I'm reading a book right now that's a compilation of a young woman's account in San Francisco that was published in a newspaper in 1913. They did a running series. She was a sex worker, and it's just her thoughts. And I'm reading it. And I had this revelation last night that I was like, wow, these are such progressive things she's saying. Like, this is so wild. And then I'm like, you know what? They aren't they feel new now because we have not heard them. They've been suppressed for 100 years, you know?
I always say there's nothing new on
this back then also.
I always say there's nothing new under the sun. Like, even when I think that's why I love history, is because I see so many things. I'm like, damn, you could have said that now. You're right. I think people had ideas, but because they're suppressed by whether it's because of morality, whether it's because of religion, whether it's whatever, because the patriarchy wants to keep women in certain positions, these points of views are never talked about. And again, like everything you're telling me about things that happened, let's say 18th century or even before, I guess, makes me think about, Black women's, not having any bodily autonomy, and how we don't even have that conversation when we're talking about even things like, the right to choose, or, my body, I think that there's so much that we can dig into about, I didn't mean to cut you off again, but yeah, about you found these words from someone from our past, and it really opened your eyes about like, hey, this happened there, and this person had ideas about, I guess, sex work, was it? I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, no, I love that you said that though, because that all goes back to like this, so much of this movement is focused on white victims.
Yes. And that's what I think that's what I was trying to get at. I'm not trying to push you, but like, it really is like it's white, and you mentioned how like the black hand over the mouth. I even saw people take the indigenous folks take the red hand, because the murdered and missing indigenous women, MMIW hashtag, they had the red hand over the mouth, and I see that now in some of the Save the Kids protests, and it's like, wow, you're just taking and appropriating all, doing all kinds of really weird racist things with some of this advocacy, but it's all around a white victim, which is
right. Yeah. And I do think there's a connection, because immigration has been such a hot topic for the past 10 years at least, especially, and I have to wonder if there's a connection with this rise in hysteria around sex trafficking and people's immigration fears.
Yeah, you read my mind. I was going to say that's the next part. I think they go hand in hand, and I think if we really research history, we'll see that this I guess advocacy probably coincides with some other demographic shifts.
100%. Yeah. I mean, you see that at the turn of the 20th century there. I mean, one of the first laws put into place, anti-trafficking laws, was 1875, and it was specifically targeted Chinese women.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, and I wanted to read a comment from Twitch. Hey, Elizabeth Ray Roberts. I don't think I've ever read one of your comments, so welcome. But Elizabeth said that I grew up in a white evangelical Christianity, grew up in white evangelical Christianity, and the way we were encouraged as high schoolers to be passionate about being against human trafficking feels like grooming for the pastel Q or QAnon conspiracies. That's very interesting. I would, if you don't mind, Elizabeth, if you can drop in the chat like what region, if you don't want to disclose too much, what region was that, and like what age, what time frame that was. I would love to know that. But yeah, I can imagine. Yeah,
that's wild. I mean, I don't think I ever heard the term sex trafficking as a teenager.
I'm trying to think too, like when did I first hear it? And I know I'm older than some of my viewers, but like I'm trying to think. Maybe when I got into I think SVU, maybe watching Law and Order, have all these cop procedurals. I think that's when I really, and that was out of college. But So what can people do? Okay, so how can people know the real? That's the question. Like what are some good sources for people to go to get real and accurate information about whether, I guess, is it sex trafficking, or is it like what?
I mean, it's everything, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, there are no more passionate advocates against sex trafficking than sex workers. So yeah, I came prepared.
Yes. Okay. Good.
This book is called Revolting Prostitutes. Ooh. It's by Juno Mack and Molly Smith. I don't know if it's backwards on my thing.
No, it's not. It's not.
Okay, cool. That number one required reading. Okay. It is such an intelligently written book. It is the most meticulously cited book I've ever read. And they go into all of this about, really what the issues are, what sex workers want. And I mean, they talk in a huge global context, and it's just a fascinating, really eye-opening read. If that's too much for you, Juno Mack does have a TED Talk, which kind of condenses, which I definitely recommend everyone watch.
I just dropped it in the chat again. Revolting Prostitutes. Yes. Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah. Okay.
Melissa Gira Grant is a writer. She has a book or two out, and she also writes regularly. So if you just Google her, you're going to find a bunch of articles that she's written.
Say her name one more time.
Yeah, Melissa Gira, and that's Gira Grant.
Okay. Good. Okay.
She's excellent. Hacking and Hustling is another organization that kind of came out of the passage of FOSTA, and they've done a lot of research. They have some really smart people working with them, and so they have a couple studies published. They have a lot of information on their website. They actually just hosted a whole sex worker conference this spring, which you can watch for free on their website. A lot of really interesting global perspectives there. That was the one I was talking to you about, that I was like, oh my God, I heard a new perspective every single day, which was really cool.
And that's important. That's really important. Okay.
Right. Exactly. Make sure we're not centering just a specific view, but really listening to people all over the world in all different kinds of circumstances and different levels of privilege. And so those are some good places to get started.
I like that you started off with like the book. Of course, I love books, but because you referenced how cited it was, like how, like, that's what I really want to encourage people. Get off Instagram. I always say, I sound like an old lady. Get off Instagram and no, get into them books. Like get into the library and really like use that library card, use that Amazon, use that whatever, however you get your books. Seriously, at this point, we've got to start like really doing the reading. We've got to start really immersing ourselves in the scholarship that exists around this issue, and not get.
And it's there. It's there.
It's so there, Evelyn. It's right there.
Sex workers, people aren't listening to them, but they're still talking regardless. And there's a lot of academic papers, books, blogs. It's all out there.
And I wanted to say too, because I wanted to make sure we cover the decrim versus legalizing aspect. But I want people to, I just really want people to stop trying to, like, I know how easy, now, you and I follow so many dope people on Twitter and Instagram, and I don't know, it feels like sometimes even I get duped by something that just aesthetically looks like put together, or looks like a great caption or infographic. I just really want to encourage people also to question everything. Question even what I post. Question things that you read. Look at the hashtags. Make sure you're not, reposting or sharing something that's problematic. Before we get to decriminalization versus legalization, and we're going kind of veer into sex work explicitly, what would you tell people? Are there any hashtags or any phrases that you think people should kind of like look at sideways if you see it or encounter it on social media?
Or
even rhetoric.
Yeah.
Save the children is the easy one.
Save the children, yeah.
Don't even try it, y'all. Yeah.
If you want to save them, give them money. That is how you do it.
Yep.
Yep. I mean, it's really kind of that simple.
Yep.
And simultaneously not simple, but I would say there's a lot of talk about how you see, and I was talking about that Post and Courier article where
yes,
you can see them talking like, oh, sex trafficking, and then they throw in something like, oh, well, I also arrested a sex worker, and it's like, well, so which one are you targeting here?
Right, because sex work and sex trafficking are not the same, y'all. Don't conflate them.
Not the same. Yep. But it's like it does exist on a gradient because and that, I mean, the definition of trafficking has gotten so broadened now where sometimes, if women are working together for safety, they could be, accused of trafficking each other.
That's crazy. Yeah.
If a woman's working with a manager or, they say pimp, whether it is a coercive situation or not, that person is going to be charged as a trafficker.
Right. And I want to also just take a moment and say, like, this is a woman dominated field. So of course women, I feel like all of this advocacy, and I'm calling it advocacy, but it's not, but all of this really misguided energy around advocating on behalf of sex trafficking victims, to me also brings that surveillance to sex work, and which is dominated by women workers. And I think that we can't ignore this is also an attack on women, and women trying to have the agency to make money this way, and also have some sort of bodily autonomy, so I think that we need to, that's another part of it.
Right. I mean, and in a society where women do not get paid as much as men, are told that we're valued less, by that, this is a way where women can make more money. It's one of the only industries where women can actually make more money than men.
Real talk, now, regardless of how y'all feel about sex work, that's why y'all mad. That's why they mad, for real, because women can make money hand over fist. Oh, that's maybe a bad framework. Women can make. I'm just joking. But women can make real bank, serious money, and that's why people are mad. That's why they want regulating. That's why they also want to add this element of either victimization or criminality to it, because and seldom do we see anyone cracking down on so-called Johns. There's a question.
We're going to get into that when we talk about the legalization versus decrim.
Okay, so here's a question from, I think it's Chope 86. Okay, it says, are there any organizations that are not embroiled in problematic issues? This is a good one. Let's go over that. Like, what groups?
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming they're talking about anti-trafficking organizations.
Yeah.
Most of them are sex worker led organizations that are trying to do work. Sex Worker Outreach Project is a national organization that has some local chapters. Not here. I've been kind of trying to start one here, but
say it one more time. And this person said they know you. They say that this is Christine. So that was I don't know. It's okay. Christine, it says this is Christine Evelyn. I think they're just saying Evelyn. But but repeat the organization one more time.
Sex Worker Outreach Project.
Okay.
It's probably the largest national organization. And a lot of these, unfortunately, off the top of my head, I can't think of a specifically anti-trafficking organization that, I'm sure there must be some, probably in bigger places than here,
right.
that, that are evidence-based, that are, listening to the facts, looking at the research.
What about like on social media, some folks that have emerged as really interesting voices in terms of either sex work or like who talk about some of these issues? Are there anyone on Twitter that's a good follow? Any people?
I mean, Melissa Gier Grant, who I already named, for sure. All of the like Sex Worker Outreach Project, Hacking and Hustling, they're all on Twitter. And it's one of those things where if you you follow the big ones and you'll start to see more voices pop up.
And so right before we get to the decrim versus we're gonna veer into decrim versus legalization. And I would suggest too, look at other cities. I'm doing this along with like how to fight some of these regressive policies coming out of South Carolina. How I do that is I look at other cities. Of course, I start with places I've lived before. But I'm looking, yeah, exactly.
Philly's doing
right. So Larry Krasner is the one name. So Philly District Attorney, Larry Krasner is doing amazing work. I when I see people that I used to manage who never talked about politics, advocate for this person or post, to vote for this person, that's one thing. But also to have followed, I still listen to WHYY. I still listen to Marty Moscowane and Radio Times and all that. So I'm listening to Larry Krasner almost in real time. But also there's a candidate in New York City, Tiffany Caban. They both Larry Krasner and Tiffany Caban have talked about decrim versus legalization. Can you help people make those distinctions?
For sure. Mm-hmm. So the model that all sex workers and not just sex workers, Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, and the ACLU have all signed on to saying, this is the way that we can reduce violence against women, whether they are consensual sex workers or trafficking victims, is full decriminalization. Okay. So what that means is basically just making it like any other job. You don't have to register somewhere or get, sign up somewhere to go work at McDonald's.
Right.
So it would be like that. It's not prosecuted.
Right.
And this is the most equal model for all people.
Right. And I think that's the issue. And I don't want to take us off topic, but when we think about, let's say, marijuana or cannabis use, there's a lot of talk about legalizing it, and then it becomes something that the state and whatnot can regulate and tax and all of that. You're saying, and granted, any labor is taxed and that's not unusual, but you're saying like to decriminalize it means you don't have to go register and have the government surveil you. You just make it legal for this thing to happen. Like, so is an example of that, is that Nevada, is that Las Vegas where the brothels exist?
So that is an example of legalization.
Oh, okay.
Which is a different thing.
Okay. No, that's good to know, because people see the Money Ranch on HBO and like, oh, they're doing it there.
Right.
Are there any countries that have like decriminalized it? I'm sorry.
New Zealand.
Okay. New Zealand. Okay.
And they have not seen an increase in the sex worker population. Of course, everyone's like, oh no, if you legalize it, just any old person's going to do it. That hasn't been shown to be the case. And like you said, income is, I want to just address this briefly. Income is still taxed, and many sex workers, even ones performing what is, currently illegal work, still pay taxes, so that's it's not an issue of like legalizing it to get more money or whatever. So, as we know in this country, like you have to have a paper trail if you want to buy a car or buy a house or do anything,
Right.
So, so sex workers pay taxes too.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So anyway, decriminalization would just be, you're free to work, cops are, that eliminates police coercion, which is a huge problem in sex work.
Big time.
And when you think about, I also want, when you were talking, it's a primarily woman dominated field. It also has a large percentage of LGBTQ people and people with disabilities.
Yeah.
Because you think about people who are marginalized from traditional avenues of work, what can they do? This is an opportunity to work when you're able, if you're disabled, to give you more flexibility that way. And, of course, we know a lot of LGBTQ youth are thrown out of their homes.
Yeah, and they end up in sex work, right?
Right. So, so anyway, on the side with that, so that's decriminalization. Legalization is, so there's a couple things going on. You may have heard of things like the Nordic model or the
someone just dropped that in the chat. So they said Nordic model goes after Johns, but they feel it deeply harms sex workers. Go ahead. But yeah, okay.
Right. So that's something that is in many countries currently, where so they say we're not going to arrest sex workers anymore, with a little asterisk, but we're going to go after the Johns. So, this is a model touted by a lot of quote unquote feminists. I don't consider them feminists if they don't support all women. But,
that's right.
Because they're like, oh, don't prosecute the women, just go after these dirty, gross men who are exploiting them.
So then that makes the work dirty and gross, and
it makes the work extremely dangerous, because, you know, a lot of sex workers, you know, ones who meet in person perform, you know, some sort of vetting process to be able to determine if this person is safe. And if they turn out not to be, I have their information, so I can, you know, put it out to and warn other people. And with the Nordic model, you know, the clients are more jumpy because they're afraid of getting busted. So this forces women to, you know, these guys don't want to give up any kind of information. So it makes the work less safe. Women have to go to more, you know, isolated areas. And also under this model, women cannot work together.
Oh, wow.
And you can only work legally, you know, without getting arrested if you're a citizen, if you're, you know, there's a lot of caveats. You know, there's no, you can't live together with another sex worker.
Things that will make it safer, right?
Exactly. And then it also makes it not safe for migrant communities.
Right.
You know, many of them participate in sex work because they don't, they are not allowed to do regular work in this country. So
do you have anything to offer people who just I'm just not there on sex work, like people who just this is just not right, like just and nothing judgy, but like how would you help folks understand why advocating for sex workers is just as important as advocating for other folks? Like how would you just kind of make a common sense appeal to people?
Totally. I mean, with that, I would just ask people to look at it from terms of harm reduction. So you may not agree with how a woman is choosing to make her money, but should she die? Should she be, you know, raped or, you know, coerced in other ways just because of it, you know? And it's been proven decriminalization increases safety for women, whether they are sex workers or trafficking victims. So it's kind of like, you know, it's, and we struggle with this a lot in our country, the moral gut feeling versus the actual research and the facts that proves that doing things a different way will make it safer for people. You know, like abortion, I think is such a an interesting one to contrast here because it's very similar. It's like, well, we don't feel like abortion is right. Okay, but if we make it illegal, women will die. This is, you know, this, you know, so it's very similar in those ways where it's like, you may not agree with this on moral grounds, but do you want women to live or do you want them to die? And so I would ask people to kind of start investigating that inside themselves and see if they can, you know, put their love of humanity in front of their personal morals.
Right. And it's not, and I always get conflicted because it's like, I don't even want to say that. I don't even want to go where I was going because I think it was just really personal. But just like for me, other people's choices, of course, they can bother me because if someone else makes a choice, that might. But something like as personal as what type of work they want to engage in or what they want to do with their bodies, especially when it's a woman who historically has not had bodily autonomy, especially if you're a woman of color, and you know, living on the fringes or living, you know, on the margins. Like you know, I just feel like there are so many limited choices and so many things that impact and restrict women already. I just feel, I don't feel like it's such, I don't know. I've lost that. I used to have that, of course. I was raised, you know, very, very churchy, but I've lost that, like, my values have to be your values thing. And I don't even think that's Christian. Like, I know as a Christian, you're supposed to be like an evangelist and talk about God. But I don't think
I don't know. Yeah. I mean, that is like, you know, you want to talk about Jesus Christ and like being cool to prostitutes.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, come on. And that's what like some of my really dope, like, people, the dope theologians in my life that have this different, like, lens on things or this different outlook, they point to it. Like, Jesus wasn't out here just not, he was compassionate and he didn't turn folks away and didn't shun folks and didn't shame folks. And if you want to lean on that.
Well, and I think also people need to look at where they're directing their fears and their judgment. If, you know, and it's again, you know, it's so similar to abortion. If you don't want people having abortions, give them access to birth control, give them subsidize childcare, give them better paying jobs. You know, it's like there's all these big macro issues that would solve this micro, or it's not micro, but you know, this like smaller subset of the issue. And it's the same thing with sex work. If you don't want people to do it, give them jobs that will pay them, you know, a real living wage.
Seriously though, I think people always, they fight, like you said, redirect your energy. Like we are so busy fighting like the person engaged in the work and demonizing the work, and we're not understanding why the work exists. And same thing with criminality. Like we were talking about crime, we talked about before I took my break from Twitch, we talked about the crime that's been popping up all around, not just North Charleston but all over Charleston. It's a byproduct of something else, and I'm more interested in asking, why is this happening at this rapid rate? Why is it happening among these certain subsets of people? I'm more interested in that as opposed to just telling you the story about who got robbed and when. Right.
And it's not to say, I mean, and I also don't want to erase the group of, you know, people that, you know, for whom sex work is their choice, no matter what. You know, it's like, this fits me, this is what I want to do.
Please, that's very important to lift up. Thank you for saying that.
Right. But you know, there's certainly a lot of people who would prefer to do something else, you know, and they're doing it, you know, just like any other job. You know, when people say like, oh, isn't that like, oh, you're just doing it for money. Well, it's like, what are you doing for money? You know, like,
let me tell you
something. Jobs we have hated and would not have done if it weren't to survive. You know?
I'm telling you, you think, I mean, it's not, I'm not trying to be silly, but like, you think emptying a grease trap at a fast food restaurant is like, and
right. If people could get a better paying job, they wouldn't be emptying the grease trap. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's like we all do stuff to survive and to have money.
And some people exactly like that work might attract people because this is what they want to do. And you don't want to remove their agency in saying that and lifting that up. It's not just desperation and these hard choices. Sometimes, like you mentioned earlier, or we mentioned in a private conversation, we know of stories of women who engage in certain work seasonally, almost like, hey, I'm going to do this for X amount of months and then I'm just going to get out, because you can make a lot of money really quickly.
Exactly. Right. I mean, it can be an exit strategy for a worse situation.
Now that's the other part. And I think people, and what I love, I don't have the book here, but I'm reading Sadia Hartman's Wayward Women? All the
was it Wayward Beautiful Wayward?
Yeah, I always get it completed. Yeah. Wayward Stories, I think. But anyway, it highlights all these amazing Black queer women from this bygone era who demonstrated this courage, who ran cat houses and did things to survive. Like they literally are surviving, and they were turned into criminals. They were treated as criminals and locked up and just face these dire circumstances because they were trying to just like, you could imagine being a woman of color, imagine being a Black woman, after slavery, only jobs you got is washing and you get raped doing that, working as a domestic. You often got raped if you're a Black woman, working in the houses of white folk. And so to try to take your own destiny in your hand and like, look, I'm going to run this cat house. There are so many stories, especially in the Black Belt of brothels or whatever you want to call them, that are all over the South that people frequented, and they did not all have this nasty or this, this seedy reputation. They weren't, I don't know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it was a way for women to, that's this, again, I'm going to talk about this book that I'm currently reading, because she really goes into detail about, she's like, I can work in a laundry for $2 a week, get sexually harassed there, be starving, living on cents a day. Of course, 100 years ago money, but still slim.
And what's the book again?
Or I can do this other thing. And like, you read her account of all these people being, all these men being like, oh, well, yeah, I'm not going to pay you enough, but you could do other stuff. You're pretty.
Yeah. But what was the book again? I don't know if you mentioned it.
It's called Alice. I think it's called Alice Tales of a Barbary Coast Prostitute.
Okay. And you're like me. I'm
going to make a reading list.
Because you're like me, because I'm literally like behind, I don't know if people can see, like behind me are like a bunch of books on my island. Like I'm just literally going through and people keep giving me books. I got a book here last night. This one's easy though. This is thin, about Maryville. that I can't wait to tell people about. But like, yeah, sometimes the titles get Wayward Lives. That's what it was. Like the titles just kind of come and go. But okay.
Yeah, I'll make a list. But yeah, I mean, with that, it's like we create these situations, we create these circumstances and conditions where people are really between a rock and a hard place, and then we kick them when they're down. So. And that's true of everything. I mean, that describes like the whole carceral system in the United States.
Okay, I'm gonna make up these questions. The last like rapid fire not rapid fire, but 3 questions I'm just gonna think of off the top of my head to help, because I really, and this is where this is where I think it's important. Okay, 3 things I'm gonna ask you and just try to answer to your best of your ability. Let me think of the 2 questions. One question is, so as we do our dismount, we're going to share resources offline. We're gonna do that. Evelyn, if you post it, I'll repost it and I'll share it with folks. Okay, so just so you know that. So y'all look out for more information on Instagram, especially Instagram. Probably only Instagram, maybe some other sources. But okay, so you'll find out more information there. But I want to ask Evelyn to help equip folks who are watching and listening. If you encounter an event led by a yogi in Charleston that talks about raising money for child sex trafficking or sex trafficking, what should people question?
I would question what the organization is, who's getting that money, and look into their stance, look into their programs, look for these kind of like red flags, false statistics that are put out, and, question whether that money is actually going to be effective. It's usually more effective to just give money directly to, a person in need.
Okay. Okay. If someone wants to engage in it, wants to be like you, wants to make sure that folks have the right information, folks not only work to like decriminalize sex work, but advocate for real victims of real people who are facing exploitation of any sorts. How can people do that? What's the one way? You're in school, you're studying master's level social work, but what other ways can people get involved in this fight?
Well, I would say the first thing, just like all of this, like it starts inside yourself. So educating yourself, listening to sex workers, even stuff it seems small, but it's really not, like stop making dead stripper jokes, stop making.
That's real.
Yeah. Where it's like changing the language, changing the way you talk about things. And really, like I said, the voices are out there. You just have to find them and listen to them. And so really starting to understand this from a more holistic level, I think is really important to start. There are a lot of really great organizations that people can donate to, or if they're in other places, even volunteer with. I want to lift up another one in New York, Red Canary Song.
Yes.
That is an Asian-led sex worker rights organization.
That one came on my radar after the horrific spa shootings. Yeah.
Whose Corner Is It Anyway in Massachusetts is a really great one that deals with street-based drug-using sex workers. So really, the most vulnerable. Yeah. And they have an ongoing fundraiser because they do outreach, I think every week, and give out supplies and give a stipend. And so they do really, really great work. So just looking, Sex Worker Outreach Project is like I said, the biggest national organization. So if you go to them, you'll be able to kind of find some more places to get involved with and donate to or help in other ways.
Okay.
So I would just say, just start looking for the voices and listening to them.
Listening is so
one of the last things I think that, we've had all these conversations on racism and, the carceral system and, all these, and I feel like sex workers are still the last ones left behind where it's still a taboo thing.
And there's overlap and all of that.
So much overlap.
So much. Yeah, definitely that. All right. The last question. The next time sex trafficking or human trafficking makes its way on the front page of the Post and Courier, what should people look for or question?
So I would just try to, just like you always say for people, always just read critically and try to look between the lines and see what's actually going on. Where is this money going? Who benefits?
The language they use.
Do they say, I noticed in that one article, it says something, X number of victims were rescued. And it was something like victim services were provided. What was it? What did that look like?
Yep.
Because, they'll also say they'll arrest, people who are actual victims of trafficking and say they're helping them.
Yeah.
It's like a rescue.
Right.
So it's like, were they arrested? How were they helped? What's actually being done materially for these victims, or is it just for the big splashy headline,
Right. And which in this case, it was the most recent headline. It felt like it was, again, getting people who are fearful of this thing, but not even thinking about the ways they exploit labor every other place, especially if you live in a tourism city, baby, they exploiting labor, but you want to focus on this boogeyman that's not even the boogeyman. But
right, and it is like, I also don't want to erase it. Is a problem. Don't want to erase that. However, the amount of funding that gets funneled towards exclusively anti-sex trafficking versus the much larger problem of forced labor.
But and I think that's what I'm trying to say. I almost asked you this earlier. It feels like a way to just to obscure the issue, the real issue. I don't want to ever be the paranoid voice of Charleston. But what I often see, especially when it's framed in the news, is that you'll take one aspect of an issue and you'll exaggerate it to take away attention from the real thing that usually that requires a class analysis or a race analysis, and not just pure victim. And that's
exactly. And when you think about the fact that the domestic labor industry has the largest amount, where are those people working? Are they working in large private homes on Kiowa and Daniel Island? It's affecting, if you attack that, you're attacking people that benefit from that labor who are in positions of power.
Absolutely. Exactly. And then you'll figure out who the patrons, who are the recipients, who are the people doing the exploiting, and that's the juicy story. That's the front page news usually, is that, not and we're not minimizing human trafficking. It is a thing, but let's be careful how we read this and what we're reading. But thank you so much, Evelyn. I think, like I said, I really, really, really wanted to have this conversation with you. And as you continue to work in this field and learn and study, just please continue to share any information. And if another story breaks, you're going to get a call. So just get ready. But no, I want to make sure that we add nuance to this. It's important to me, especially again, with like you're saying, it's like the last frontier in what we're talking about, especially in Black communities. That's why it was important for me to talk about it, because of the stigma that I know a lot of people who have my background, they might not feel comfortable with it. But I can argue that sex But sex work and things that we just discussed today impacts everybody, and in ways that we are not really ready to admit. It really impacts our lives, and we can't ignore it anymore, and we have to talk about it, especially when you know who's at risk of being hurt by either laws or certain things. But I just really, really, I don't like the influencer culture piece. I don't like the yoga culture. I'm sorry, yoga, y'all catching strays today. I love yoga, but the way that they've kind of weighed into this issue has been very troubling to me. So, but thank you. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, and I'm just gonna say bye to everything, so you can leave the Zoom. But bye, everybody. I appreciate everyone. I'll switch the camera only. Thank you, Evelyn. Evelyn left the Zoom. Thank you for riding with me extra long. Damn, we did 2 hours today. Thank you. I appreciate y'all. Thank you for just chiming in the chat, Facebook and on Twitch, and I guess YouTube as well. So thank you so much for just tuning in. This was a very long and interesting talk, but I'll be back on Monday, unless Harry Griffin, it's not focusing, unless Harry Griffin does something. Oh, it's my mic. That's what it is. Unless Harry Griffin or Nancy Mace does something, or unless I get a call from Mia McLeod, I'll be back. All right. Take care, y'all. I don't know why I'm so blurry and out of focus. Bye.